This week on the High Limit Room, new high roller Giovani Scelzi joins the show to talk about his new deal with Spire Motorsports, his season expectations, and his new big sponsor, Chili's Grill and Bar. All on this week's episode of the High Limit Room. Before we get to Gio, there was a big announcement during the Chili Bowl Midget Nationals. If you did not see it, Fox Sports 1 will carry 6 races with High Limit Racing next year live on television at tracks like Eagle, Red Cedar, Eldora, Grandview, Vado, and Kokomo. It is going to be absolutely incredible. A huge moment for dirt track racing to be live on television for 6 races, one a month throughout the middle portion of the year. We are so very much looking forward to be back on Fox Sports 1 after a very impressive debut at Eldora Speedway during the Joker's Jackpot. Now, we mentioned the Chili Bowl there. That was when the FS1 announcement came out, but a few days after that, it was Emerson Axum winning a wild Chili Bowl Midget Nationals, the first of his career, and yet another Chili Bowl win for Kevin Swindell as a car owner. He had 2 cars up there inside the top 5 with Logan Seavey, and his other 2 cars made the show with Jet Barnes and Kyle Cummins, but it was all about Indiana's Emerson Axum getting that victory. Absolutely incredible stuff from him as he held up to the pressure from Justin Grant, from Logan Seavey, and from Kyle Larson. Even though Larson got into an incident very early on in that race, he was still able to hold up to the pressure and hang on for 55 laps to take down the Golden Driller and $20,000 in cash. Now, when it comes to high rollers, however, Aaron Reitzel, the big winner over at the Grand Annual Sprint Car Classic at the Premier Speedway in Australia. It was the second time that Reitzel has won that big race. It's basically the Knoxville Nationals of Australia, and Reitzel won 60,000 Australian dollars with that victory, driving for Monty Motorsports, which was a team that he'd been with since the Perth Motorplex race with High Limit Racing International. Reitzel not too successful up until this big win at Perth, at Premier. He did get a win on the west coast of Australia, but this one was absolutely huge. Incredible moment for Reitzel and for Luch Monty. Congratulations to them. Now, let's jump into the interview with Giovani Scelzi. All right, welcome back to the High Limit Room. It's been like a month, I feel like, since our last show, but figured to bring it back here, we should have one of the newest full-time high rollers on. Of course, that is Giovani Scelzi. Big announcement back in December, joining Spire Motorsports, a brand new team, the Sprint Car Racing. They're going to be going full-time with High Limit, so it's pretty exciting. Gio, welcome to the show. You have been busy here recently. Just got done over at the Chili Bowl, where I would say it was a decent week for you, right? I mean, the prelim night went pretty well, and then unfortunately had something go wrong running in the transfer spot in the B main on Saturday. But overall, would you say it was a relatively successful week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, going into nights like that, or weekends like that, I should say, not racing the midget for 5 years. And I was happy with how practice day went. I felt like I kind of got in the groove of things pretty quick. But, it sucks as the most comfortable I felt was in the B main there on Saturday. So, if I'm going to do it again, I would like to at least race Turkey Night or race some of the West Coast stuff to kind of make sure I actually have a shot to run up front on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gio, with jumping into a car that you don't normally race, being a full-size midget, I mean, how long does it take to get acclimated? I know what you just said, that the most comfortable you felt was in the B main on Saturday, but from a very short practice session, or from 2 very short practice sessions on Sunday, how long does it take for you to just feel like, okay, I'm back to doing what I think I should be doing in this car?
Yeah, I mean, I looked into it pretty deep, whether I wanted to go on like a Monday, the day after my practice day, to kind of get that back-to-back feeling in the race car. But ended up going Friday, which I don't really think hurt me at all. Being able to watch everybody and see how the track kind of develops throughout the whole week, which I thought was different every single night, really. But yeah, it does take time. We're all race car drivers. We can all kind of adapt pretty quick, but not running a midget for a long time. And I feel like if you race midgets all the time and you go to a sprint car, the transition is going to be way harder than going kind of down with less horsepower and a lighter race car. So I was happy with it. There's certain things that you just learn driving a midget more and more that you get used to, and can't complain too much about the week.
Well, we knew that was going to happen at least once, the phone falling over, and maybe 2 or 3 more times. But when it comes to your career here, the last, 3, 4, 5 years, I feel like it's kind of been, the same thing every year, right? I mean, it's the 18 cards on the Outlaw Tour. The Outlaw Tour, the schedule doesn't really change as much. They've got, 4 or 5 tracks they like to go to every year and run, 6, 7, 8 times. What is the excitement level going into next year with High Limit, knowing that it's a completely different schedule than what you're used to seeing, plus with the excitement of being with this new team and having an opportunity to, I would say, be a top 3 contender in the points with Eric helping out. Obviously, he's a pretty big deal last I checked. But what's the excitement level going into next year, knowing that it's going to be a lot different from what you've been doing the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think with the Outlaws, being the only game in town for so long, growing up watching races and watching Outlaw shows, their schedule has been the same for a long time. So the regions they go to in certain times of the year is really always the same. So you kind of base your mindset off of their schedule, right? So the last 3 years kind of starting in Florida, moving through the Southwest and Southeast, I guess I should say, with Magnolia and through Texas, and which was Devil's Bowl for a long time, and heading through North Dakota and those tracks they would go to, it's a lot different going in this year, obviously. So the few new tracks I went to last year, Texas Motor Speedway was one that was really cool, and not going to Williams Grove until the National Open. So it does change your mindset a lot, I feel like. But you can still run Knoxville Nationals, all the big shows. None of those markers throughout the year really change. So Kings Royal in July, Knoxville Nationals August, National Open in October. So the outlook doesn't change a whole lot. I feel like once you get to a racetrack, once you get in a rhythm, it's all kind of the same. There's not that many new racetracks, but a lot of the times, it's your first time at a racetrack as well as everybody else's. So I'm looking forward to the year for sure.
Well, Gio and Chase, you're both Californians, and I want to get ahead of this. You guys might be noticing a fellow Californian behind me. That is NASCAR legend Jeff Gordon. I'm on the road right now, staying with a buddy down in Florida, and he's a Jeff Gordon fan. So I just want you guys to quit checking out Jeff Gordon behind me, and I'm gonna block him a little bit with my giant head. Gio, I think I heard an interview back at PRI with you, where you talked about when this deal was kind of in the talks and you were trying to figure out your next move. I think you talked about, well, I didn't want to go get involved in something unless I knew it was legit. And that comes down to the people involved. And you were speaking in reference to once you found out Eric Pretzman was going to be involved. Chase just mentioned Eric a moment ago. If I remember the interview correctly, you talked about once you knew that Eric Pretzman was involved, you knew this deal that Spire was putting together was something you wanted to be a part of. What is it about Eric Pretzman that legitimizes a program and is value added to a group that you want to be a part of? What does Eric bring to the table that you enjoy so much?
I mean, where do you start? His demeanor, I feel like, is a big thing for me, and truly working his way up from the bottom all the way to a crew chief with Donnie being a tire guy. And when he was a tire guy at Donnie's, he was really more than a tire guy, building the shocks and learning from Ricky and Scuba as well. I feel like that was probably one of, if not the super team with Ricky, Scuba, and Eric as a tire guy. So 3 guys that, all became crew chiefs and all became really good crew chiefs, winning crown jewel races all over the country. So Eric's someone I've known for a long time. Like I said, with Donnie, they stayed at our shop in Fresno, and he came to micro races, and we weren't super close, but was always someone around that even when he left TSR, I stayed in touch with, and somebody you could just kind of talk to with the success he had at Brad Sweet, and leaving there last year, the year before, I can't remember what year it was, but when I got told that Eric was on board and was locked in for 2026, I was about fell over, honestly. So I feel like in today's world, everyone has money, everyone has good motors, everybody has the budgets they need to be successful. It's all about personnel, right? So that relationship with a driver and a crew chief is the most important thing in my eyes. And the bad nights you have, how do you bounce back from the bad nights? And starting a new team is obviously it's fun. I feel like, not very often, you're going into a deal that's completely started from scratch. Normally you're going to a team that's already established with a crew chief that's been there for a long time, and they're just switching drivers around. So to be able to start something from scratch, that whether it's components in the cockpit or on the race car that Eric wants or I want, it's exciting to really have no variables, I feel like, and be able to start from scratch really how you want to be.
Well, obviously, you guys haven't raced a single race yet together. You did run the Chili's Midget, of course, but the Chili's Sprint car, when is that going to be making its debut? I feel like I might have you confused with Sunshine or something. Are you guys not going to Dirt Car Nationals and then showing up at Talladega? Is that the plan before you guys head out to Vegas, or is it something different?
Yes. Nope, that is our plan. We planned on going to Dirt Car Nationals, but obviously starting a new team, there's hiccups that, I mean, for us to make it to Volusia, which we're not going to go anymore, everything had to be perfect. And, engines have showed up. We have a lot of the components were 80% of the way there, but obviously starting, organizing a trailer from scratch and just the time consuming stuff that you really don't think. I mean, these cars do bolt together pretty quick, and really building the cars isn't the problem. It's just being organized, ready to go to that first race. And I feel like if you start the first weekend behind the 8 ball, it takes months and months and months to kind of get caught up again.
That's really interesting. And actually, there's like a lot more that I would actually like to ask and know more about that. But Chase also sets me off on a really good foot for the next question I had, which is Chili's. Chili's is a huge brand. It was great to have them involved in the Chili Bowl Nationals. It was cool to see them on your midget, and it was really cool to see them debut on the sprint car. Again, you guys unveiled that back at PRI. So you're not new to racing big time events, big time series with big time partners, but Chili's really is, I feel like, another level that we don't always see a lot of, that kind of corporate name in sprint car racing. So what's it been like? I know there's probably some stuff you might have to go through as a driver representing the brand with them all over your fire suit and your race car. What's it been like stepping into that world and going into a new year with a name as big as the Chili's restaurant is?
Yeah, it's super cool, honestly. Anytime you can bring corporate sponsors into racing, I feel like it's awesome. And now NASCAR is really fully corporate. I feel like they all have big names on their cars. And the biggest thing I related back to is growing up with my dad having Winston as a sponsor and Oakley as a sponsor. Obviously two gigantic corporate sponsors that he represented for a long time in drag racing, kind of relating that to him and how his contracts were worked out and kind of how he had to carry himself in front of a camera. But it is so cool to have a corporate brand like that. I feel like, a lot of corporate sponsors in racing are automotive driven, and to have someone like that is, zero influence with automotive, industry, whether it's a Napa or whatever. But very cool to see the fan engagement and only racing Chili Bowl. Everyone can relate to Chili's. I feel like whether they've been to one, whether they like it, whether they don't, I feel like they see that name on the racetrack is an immediate, drawing their eyes to the race car.
Yeah, it was fun to, be a small part of Chili's. I guess they're over at the Chili Bowl with the pre-race show and stuff, and it's awesome to see that they are involved in dirt track racing. Well, we all know the story last year, of course. You get in the 7BC after Tyler gets hurt, and you finish out the year for those guys. I feel like, a lot of time with Tyler at the end of the year as he was the co-commentator on the broadcast. And, at Texas, we went to a hockey game together, and he called you when we were on our way to the hockey game, and you guys were, kind of busting each other's balls and stuff, just messing around back and forth. Was your guys' relationship, really that good before you got in the 7BC, or did you guys really kind of, spark a new friendship or become a lot closer when that all came together?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard position to be in, right? Whether you're me or whether you're Tyler stepping into a position like that, I feel like, when someone's driving your race car, when you're hurt, it's different, but it's like someone going out with your girlfriend, right? So, those are your crew guys. That's your team. Like that's the people you live every day with. So, how welcoming they were to me with Ron, Jake, and Bob, and, how easy they made the transition. You could tell, like, it's hard. They're number one guy they've raced with for however many years, and Tyler's been at Clausen for I think 10 years now. So that's the guy that's had the longest tenure there, and I hope has a long tenure in the future. But going into a situation like that where you're done at World Finals is a hard transition to make. I feel like, because there is no long-term goal. There is no next year. It's do the best you can right now, and then you're done. So, no, but to answer your question, our friendship definitely, went to the next level. I feel like is not weird as that sounds. But no, I mean, we work out together now. He lives in Newton. I live in Grimes. So we're right outside Des Moines. And, someone like that really, I felt like wanted me to be the best I possibly could in his race car, make the learning curve as fast as possible. Definitely helped. On the really bad nights, he was there, and on the good nights, he was cheering me on. So, like I said, it was a terrible situation. Everyone was put in, but I felt like with the team, me and Tyler all made the best of it for sure.
Yeah, I feel like at the banquet in Tannehills in Fort Worth at the end of the season, you and Tyler got up there together to both represent the 7BC, and you were, just very blunt. You got up there, and I think the first thing you said was, well, being at a high limit banquet at the end of the season is not how I saw my 2025 going. But, you did do a really great job, and I think you did a really important thing to step in and help those guys finish up the year. You talked to me at Eldora, I feel like, during 4 Crown Nationals when we came back there, And you talked about how you and the team had kind of had a bit of a come to Jesus meeting. And it really sort of was grounded in the fact that you felt like it's not that your communication between yourself and Jake and everybody else on the 7BC, it's not that the communication was bad, but if I remember how you talked, it was that they didn't understand how you were saying and what you were saying you wanted. And it all kind of came back to Tyler's a non-wing background kind of guy. When he says certain things about the car, Jake, Argo, and the rest of the team know that it means this, but you don't have that non-wing background. So you're looking for a different feel in the car. So when you would say things, it would mean something different to what Jake was hearing. How hard is that for you as a driver to come into a new program with guys you don't know really that well, and for you to say, we all need to sit down and have like a real serious conversation? It felt like you sort of took that whole situation into your hand. Is that tough to do as a new guy to the program and look at Jake Argo, who's older than you, and tell these guys, this is what we need to do? Was that tough?
I mean, I wouldn't give myself all the credit. I think Tim and Tyler had a lot to do with that conversation. And, when you're with a new group of guys, when you don't run well, I think it was after Lawrenceburg, it's like, man, are these guys going to be mad at me? Am I going to get fired? Like, how is this going to be handled? And I don't think it could have gone much better. I think we all sat in Tim's office and watched film from Lawrenceburg, and having Tyler there and Jake sitting there and kind of picking apart the race car. But from my experience, I feel like when you're running good with, say, related to working with Bernie, there's really not much said when you get out of the car. The crew chief sees someone on the racetrack, the driver's feeling something. It's almost like a telepathic communication, I guess. They're already going to make changes that you already, in your mind know you want. And I think times there, Jake had something in his mind and I had something else in my mind. And it was like, all right, we're rolling. Let's make a change. And we get further from where we need to be. So it's like, all right, let's take a step back here. That was only in early September, I think. So it's like, okay, we have a lot more races here. It's easy in that point, just say, all right, give me to the end of the year. I only have to do this for a couple more months. Let's just get this over with, instead of kind of wrangling it in. And even our first night at Fort Crown was not very good. And we were significantly better the next night. So, those guys know what they're doing. Jake's a really smart guy, and having Tyler there to kind of point us in the right direction and say, Tyler is someone that's felt exactly what the car is doing and saying, hey, I might like that feel. Gio's not going to like that feel. So, like I said, those conversations are really, really hard to have. And when you have everyone that is in the same boat, wanting the same outcome, and in the end, I think once everyone in the room understands that you're only trying to get better and no one's feelings get hurt, that's when you really start making progress.
Gio, you mentioned a minute ago that you are in Newton, Iowa, of course, and when you were at the KCP 18, that car was also based in the Iowa area. This new team is now going to be based in North Carolina. How is that going to affect things with you when it comes to maybe small things? Hey, I got to make an adjustment on my seat, or I got to go in here and I don't know what it is. It could be something small, right? But how is that going to affect things when you are kind of far away now from where your cars are going to be sitting at, right, throughout the year?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the only reason I'm in Des Moines is because of KCP. So, picking up and moving shop, halfway across the country is not an easy thing, obviously. So, the good thing is there's 2 direct flights a day from Des Moines to Charlotte. So I flew there after PRI and hung out with the guys, and I'll probably fly there again next week to get my seats mounted and kind of finalize everything. So, it does suck, I guess, not being able to drive to the shop or walk in and hang out with the guys, whether I do nothing or whether I take them a lunch or whatever. That connection is very, very important to me. So, the good thing is, not the great thing for the guys, but they're not going to be home very much. So a lot of their time being based in Charlotte will be spent on the road in the hotel room, which will probably mean I'm with them in a hotel. So, anytime you can kind of strengthen that bond with the guys, whether you're on the road or at the shop or whatever, it is very important. So, them being in Charlotte and kind of starting everything new, that's where Eric lives from racing with KKR. So it's home for him. And them getting two new crew guys is really important as well. So, yeah, I don't think it'll be an issue. Like I said, they're going to be gone so much. It's not like they're going to be home every weekend. So, I would like to be closer to them. I think something in the future that could possibly happen if we have the results I really think we're going to have. So, we'll just kind of see how it plays out.
It's really interesting to me, Gio, what you just said about when you get out of the car, if things are rolling well, or even if they're not going that well, but if you're in good chemistry with your crew chief and your team. Kyle Larson said the same thing to us on probably the last recording of this show we had back before going to Perth and the crazy winter that's been going on. Kyle said the same thing. He goes, me and Paul don't really talk that much about the race car, which I think some people would be shocked to hear, but you just proved it again. When you and your crew chief are on the same page, he knows what to look for in the car. you know the minimal things to tell him. And I think that's just such a cool part of the sport and the bonds that you guys all build traveling and racing as much together as you do. Speaking of good communication, and a moment ago we talked about Chili's and the big corporate level of sponsorship and involvement. That obviously brings a lot of pressure. You've probably had a great role model in your life and how to deal with the corporate world and, saying the right thing at the right time in your brother, Dominic Scelzi. What has he taught you about how to carry a brand and represent a high dollar group like Chili's or any sponsorship? Dominic Scelzi has probably taught you a lot about how to say the right thing at the right time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that he's probably taught me is just be yourself, right? I mean, to an extent, I mean, us talking at the bar is different from us talking on camera, right? But if you're upset, be upset. If you're happy, be happy. I think that, corporate sponsors appreciate that and they want you to have a personality, right? I mean, you don't want to be a robot and say the exact same things when you get out. If you win or if you crash, show your emotions. And I think a brand like that, Tim with Chili's, he loves dirt racing. He's been a Devil's Bowl. He's been a Cannondale. Like he's a racer, and that goes a long way with results. Number one, with branding and understanding how much time we spend on the road and whether we do appearances or whatever, like having someone in that organization that understands how it works, how much we travel, how our schedules look goes a long way. And carrying yourself is obviously really important, right? Like, I think, saying the right things, and not so much saying the right things. I think just carrying yourself in a professional way while showing your emotion at the same time is very important.
Well, Gio, on this show, a lot of the times we like to go to the Facebook comments because that's where a lot of really bright ideas and things come from, right? So when this whole thing was announced with Spire Motorsports, I saw a comment, maybe it was actually on X. So I don't know if that's better than Facebook.
Just as smart.
Yep, just as smart. And you could the fake accounts on there are even worse than Facebook, I would have to think. So this guy was saying that, due to Gio now being hired by Spire Motorsports and he's going to run their sprint car or whatever, these Spire Motorsports guys are trying to steal Gio from dirt and take him to NASCAR, and that is their big plan. That's what's going on here. They are going to take you, run a year of sprint cars, and then after that you're out of here. You're going to Cup, you're going to the Xfinity, whatever it's called. Is that the plan?
Listen, I'm old. As dumb as that sounds, I'm 24 years old. The late model stuff, ARCA truck. I mean, Corey Day's 19, 20 years old, I think. And to make that transition, that's kind of already a road I went down. Now, if Jeff Dickerson was to say, hey, do you want to run a truck race here, run a truck race there? I wouldn't say no to it. But man, I got a really good opportunity right now to win a lot of sprint car races and really win the big races I've always wanted to win in my career. And, like I said, it's not something I would say no to, a race or two here and there, but my focus right now is to win a high limit championship and win, Knoxville Nationals and win those crown jewels.
A little bit more just kind of like, because we have you and it's cool to get to talk to you like this over a little bit of a longer period, just some stuff I'm interested in. Like, obviously you mentioned already, I think most people watching this know who your dad, Gary Scelzi, is, the career that he had in NHRA drag racing, going straight down a track faster than anything else in the world. When you were growing up, and forgive my ignorance for not knowing more about your background and your childhood and you growing up, but was that ever a path that you or Dominic wanted to go down? I mean, I don't know about Dominic getting like wedged into a dragster, but you yourself, did you want to go that path? Did you see your dad doing what he was doing, as great of a career as he had in drag racing? Was that something you wanted for yourself, or has it always pretty much been the oval track route?
I mean, drag racing's so much different. There really is no cut and dry path to Top Fuel. My dad, it got his ride because of a death in the previous driver driving that car. So, like I said, a fatality in the sport gave my dad the best opportunity of his life. So, not saying that's how it always works, but, he was done racing actually when he got his ride to race a Top Fuel car. So, not that had any influence in my decision, but I was 7 years old when he retired. So I do remember some of it, but I was super, super young when he was already done. So there really wasn't much of a want to go do it. I think same thing with my brother. I love drag racing. I watch every drag race with Austin racing now and changing over to Tasca from John Force Racing. There's a lot of drama, I guess you could say, going on there, a lot of exciting stuff, but just didn't really have a huge interest in driving them. Like I said, I love watching them, love going, but and you're strapping yourself into a bomb on wheels, and that's not really something I want to do. And a big part of it was there's really not a path, like I said. So with sprint cars, it's, go-karts, outlaw karts, micro sprints, midgets, all the way to sprint cars. There's really no path other than junior dragsters, which don't really teach you a whole lot. You really have to be 16 to drag race anything, that they could really show you how to drive. So, my dad's thought was, well, he'll put us in micro sprints and stuff and teach us how to race until we're 16. If we want to go into drag racing, that was always an option for us. But kind of how our careers went when we were 16, 17, 18, the drag racing path was never really an option for us.
One thing that Gary did a lot was not only race, but he raced on television a lot, live television, that is. And this year, I'm hoping you probably saw this announcement by now because it took place in the middle of the Chili Bowl, so I could see how somebody could miss it. But it was announced back at the Chili Bowl that Fox Sports 1 is going to be broadcasting 6 of the high limit shows live on their television program, of course. 6 different racetracks spread out 1 month apart. How much are you looking forward to that? How cool is it to see where sprint car racing is going? Because it seems like, and I think Tony Stewart mentioned this on that Chili Bowl pre-race show we mentioned earlier, that he thinks sprint car racing and dirt racing as a whole is maybe at an all-time high as far as the fanfare goes. But I think that FS1 thing shows that, there is a want for this. There is people that want to see this take the next level and be on a large program like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, as many good guys have signed on to High Limit, as many good guys have signed on to the World of Outlaws. You have two strong series, I feel like, going to race nationally across the country. So live racing will only bring more attention to that. And when people see a sprint car race, they've never seen one before, flipping through channels is a huge avenue to gain more fans. And having the crossover events like we do with Vegas and Texas, a lot of people going there for a NASCAR race probably don't even know that we're racing or might be surprised and, hey, what's going on the dirt track over there? So anytime you can have crossover fans between pavement oval track racing and dirt track racing is huge.
Well, in the same breath of those 6 high limit races that'll be broadcast live on FS1, I remember reading, it might have been, there was like a biography of like the story of ESPN, and they interviewed a lot of athletes and figures that benefited from ESPN covering their sport and televising it when ESPN was looking for anything they could put on a 24-hour sports network. You need a lot of sports. Well, Jeff Gordon was interviewed, hashtag right there. But I'm more of a Coca-Cola guy, in case you guys were wondering. That's from a long time ago. Anyway, when you read Jeff Gordon's quotes in those books, he talks about, man, when Thursday Night Thunder was a thing and we knew that these select USAC races would be put on national television, they knew as drivers and teams back then in the 90s, we have to be at that race. We've got to be at this network broadcast. I think I know the answer. So, but expand on it if you can. I don't imagine that you guys seeing an FS1 race makes that race much more important than it already is. Flo already does a great job of taking our sport into so many people's homes, on their cell phones, on their computers, whatever. So I don't think FS1 televising these races changes how you, Giovani Scelzi, drive the race car, unless it does, and correct me if I'm wrong. But does it add anything to the show? Does it add anything to you going into it and saying, as a competitor, this race is a little bit different because it's on national television, or am I maybe, going down the wrong path on that?
I mean, honestly, to me, whether it's the Knoxville Nationals or a high limit show in Timbuktu, Arkansas, once the engine starts, once you're on the racetrack, you're not going to race any harder or any differently around anybody when you're actually on the racetrack. So, the stuff around it definitely changes how you look at it, whether there's more people, interviews, more things taking up your time, definitely changes your routine throughout the night, right? Like if there's no hot laps or however it went for Eldora this last time, I wasn't there, but not having hot laps going right into a feature definitely changes how you talk about your race car, whether you're locked in, whether you're not locked in. That stuff changes, but teams and drivers always adapt to that kind of thing. But you could say, hey, this is the granddaddy of them all, whether it's Knoxville or whatever. But once you get to racing, I don't, treat a race any different. I feel like if you start treating a crown jewel race differently, then does that mean you're neglecting just a regular points paying show? I don't want to look at any races differently. I feel like winning a high limit show that's just a weekly points show to a crown jewel event, whether it's Texas Motor Speedway or whatever, that pays $50,000 to win, doesn't really change my outlook. Like I said, the stuff outside the event, getting to the event, your normal routine will change, but the racing itself doesn't for me.
Well, Gio, television, a new team, obviously, Spire Motorsports, they are a huge, huge deal when it comes to NASCAR and all the other crazy things that, you can go down a whole rabbit hole with what they've got going on. But with this new high roller club next year, with High Limit and the franchise system and all that, and all this new money being pumped in, when you go from a team like KCP that, has been around a long time, but, they're owned by a guy that owns a successful business, right? I mean, sure, that's huge, but Spire, I feel like, is 3, 4, 5 times the size of that. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea. But my point is, when you get to this high roller club thing and you join High Limit Racing, there's all this extra money out there. If this was Tony asking the question, he'd ask you, how much money are you making this year? Don't answer that question, but how much different are the negotiations going from a team like KCP to a team like Spire with this whole high roller club? We don't need the exact numbers and stuff, but is the contract negotiations, is there a contract, is it much, much different from what you've been used to?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I shouldn't say worries me, but changes when you're talking about pay is the World of Outlaws pay their purse, the point fund, half to the driver, half to the owner. All of the money from High Limit goes to the owner. So, having a good relationship with your owner or whoever you deal with is very important in that aspect. So whether it's a 50-50 split, which I feel like most drivers are on, whether it's a higher percentage of nightly, a lower percentage of charter, it's honestly opens you up to a lot of ways to kind of negotiate a contract with a driver, whether it's a long-term thing, a short-term thing. So I've never had a contract in my entire career. It's always been based off a handshake deal, and all my handshake deals in the past have gone great. So it does definitely change dynamically from the owner to the driver, and protecting the owners as well as the drivers with purse. So the more money you pump in, it becomes more important how long you race with a 2-year average, and getting those spots locked down for the following year for sure.
Well, Gio, I don't want to know how much money you're making driving that race car, but if I were Chase, I'd ask you how many cats you have, and then I would imagine that you probably don't have any because, you're a normal guy. I just got to know with how much the schedule changes. We hit on that already, year to year with High Limit. I like the fact that High Limit, we're not just going to the same tracks year after year on the same weekend, doing the same thing as always. So with the new schedule, where's somewhere that we as a series are going in 2026 that maybe you've been there before, maybe you haven't, but if it's a track you haven't been to before or just not very many times before, where is somewhere that the series is going this coming year that you're really looking forward to getting to?
Yeah, Texas Motor Speedway was badass. I only went there one time, and I know it can rain and conditions can change, but the finale show we had, the track was phenomenal both nights, I thought, and having a venue that's that big, that can hold that many people, I'm really looking forward to going there in May with NASCAR. Obviously Vegas, because I'm a degenerate gambler. That's obviously good. I need to win all of those nights to pay for my gambling budget from MGM. But yeah, I raced in Vegas in 2019, I believe, which was however many years ago, 6, 7 years ago. Really, really want to win in Vegas. That would be definitely a cool one to win. Those two really, I feel like once the season gets going, not just another racetrack, but I feel like, in my eyes, any racetrack can either put on the best race of the year or the worst race of the year, depending on track conditions, right? So whether it rains, whether it's too dry, whether it's too wet, you guys have gone to tracks that sprint cars don't very often go, and it was a phenomenal show. And you can go to a racetrack that sprint cars race every weekend, and it was a bad show. So, I think conditions and surfaces are the biggest variable we all deal with, as you guys know. Getting the track 2 lanes, and look forward to going out west, see my family. Tulare, Santa Maria is a new one. I've never actually raced there. Been there a couple times to watch Dominic race, but that whole track up through Oregon to Washington is always a fun one.
You mentioned a couple tracks that you were hoping to win at, Vegas obviously being one of them, and that leads me to my next question. What are the expectations for you guys? Do you have a number set as far as I want to win this many races? We want to be top 2 in points. We want to be top 3 in points, whatever it is. How do you guys kind of lay that out, or have you laid that out for yourself? Because to me, there might be a little bit of growing pains right there in the first couple, which is why you guys are going to run Talladega and whatnot. But, there could be some growing pains or whatever. But I feel like the team that you're putting together with Eric and you as a driver, I mean, you've ran top 5 in Outlaw points before. What are the expectations right now, if you guys have any set at this point?
Yeah, I mean, obviously winning a championship, winning as many races as possible is always the goal for everyone, right? Whether that's realistic or whether it's not, that's how everyone goes into the season. Everyone's recharged when they get to Vegas and everyone's ready to go. But I think just getting in the rhythm is the biggest thing. How quick I can get my communication on the same page with Eric, which we've talked once or twice a week since September, honestly, probably. So, having those conversations when I ran the 7BC car, he was at a couple races, not helping us, but watching, and kind of critiquing my driving or saying that you did this good or you did this bad is huge. And I feel like once we get on the same page with the race car and what direction we're moving in, I think the results will follow pretty quick.
Gio, earlier when we talked about you and coming into the 7BC team, and I brought up that whole conversation you guys had about just sort of deciphering what you mean when you say something and what Tyler means when he says something. And you talked about Tyler advised the team, well, just because I like it feeling this way, the car that is, and you guys do these adjustments to it, Gio may not feel that same way. He may not like the feel of the car. I don't ever like to get too overly technical with these kinds of questions because the majority of racing fans, they've never raced a sprint car, right? They're not going to know maybe what you mean when you answer this question, but I'm sure we have a lot of young racers. I'm sure we have a lot of young crew members who are just trying to learn more about the jargon and the feel and the technicality of the sport. So I'm not asking for any setup notes here or you to give away any, secret numbers, but I just explain a little bit when you talk about the way you like a race car to feel, a wing 410 sprint car, what is that feel to you? Everybody talks about, wanting the left side down. Some guys like to drive off the left front. What are you searching for in a race car when you climb behind the wheel, whether it's one you're filling in or it's your permanent ride like the Spire Motorsports opportunity? What's a good feeling race car feel like to you?
Yeah, I mean, every crew chief's going to laugh at me when I say this, but if you can get something that lays left and wings down on entry and something that sticks to regular on the exit and drives off the corner, that's the race car you always want. So it's so hard, I feel like, nowadays with, people talk about how the racing's changed and how we're cushion dependent and blah, blah, blah. But we're making a lot more horsepower now. We're almost up to 1,000 horsepower with these motors. We all make a ton of grip. The tires are obviously a huge variable. And all those things kind of have to come into play. And what's so hard is the terms of tight and loose don't really come up as much anymore. It's almost you're stuck or you're not. And I feel like finding that line of being stuck and in the racetrack and being, sliding across the track or rolled up or whatever kind of, terms you want to use. It's so hard to find that balance in the race car and be good throughout a whole 30 or 40 lap feature. You get guys that qualify good that aren't great in the feature or qualify like shit and they're really good in the feature. So, finding that balance, I felt like Rico and Gravel and Buddy and those really, really good cars have found every single night. And a big thing that those guys do is they don't qualify bad very often. When they qualify bad, they can have a hero run in a heat race and make it up through it and still start up front in the feature. So, those terms are always kind of different, I feel like. And like I said earlier, if you have a crew chief that can see what you're feeling on the track, because a lot of times as good as the drivers are nowadays, they're already kind of fixing the problems with the race car within 2, 3, 4 laps. So, not to the untrained eye, but to a car chief or someone that isn't really as tuned in as a crew chief, you can miss those things and say, well, what, you might win the race and say, man, the car was doing X, Y, and Z. I had to move around and move down or move up or move to the middle or whatever. Just getting on the same page, however you describe it, is so important with a crew chief, because you can go a night where you might explain something to the crew chief and he interprets it a totally different way, and you go out in the feature and say, what happened? Why are we so bad? But yeah, I mean, staying calm, I feel like is the biggest thing. As many times as I want to get out of the car and throw a steering wheel through someone's head or rip a cabinet door off the wall is easy to want to do sometimes, but in the end, the whole crew is working towards the same goal, right? You all want to get faster and want to win races, whether you miss it. And I feel like drivers are going to miss it a lot more than crew chiefs are going to miss it. I feel like I have 30 laps. That's, however many corners, 2 corners a turn. I have a lot more chances to make mistakes than a crew chief putting bars or shocks in the car. So I feel like I'm the first guy to blame myself and say I should have done X, Y, and Z when you get to, a driver crew chief that is open to not taking the blame, but saying they can do a better job is really important.
Well, Gio, my final question before we finish things off here. The last couple of years, I would say at least the last 2, for sure. The Outlaws, it's been the Buddy, it's been the Dave, and it's been the Carson show. Those 3 guys have been the dominant forces over there for at least the last 2 years, winning a bulk of the races. Last year with High Limit Racing, it seemed like there's a ton of parity. Obviously, Rico won the most races, but he didn't have the best average finish, which is crazy to think that, he won the championship. That's unheard of in this day and age. Aaron was very, very good before he got hurt. Brad, super consistent. Brent Marks had 5 or 6 wins. I would have been very curious to see what Tyler could have done if he didn't get hurt. You got Thorson up there winning races. Pers, all these guys are winning races. That Parity, is that exciting for you to go into high limit knowing that, like, I mean, every single night, you literally never, it almost seemed like Tony and I talked about this a lot on the road. It's like, we showed up to every track. We literally had no idea who could win on that any given night, where when I was with the Outlaws, which was a couple years ago, right? But it kind of felt like, okay, this guy's got a chance, this guy's got a chance, and then maybe this guy, right? Do you feel that as well as a competitor going to high limit this year?
Yeah, I feel like, drivers have strengths in certain regions, right? You go to look at Tanner Thorson, he wins at Path Valley, and he might go to a Knoxville or Eldora and not be as good because that's not what his background is. He's, grew up racing midgets and non-wing stuff, and he ran wing stuff obviously there for a while in California, but definitely a guy feels more comfortable on a small racetrack that's more elbows up. And you go to a guy like Cy Lynch, where probably not going to be great at a Placerville or a Path Valley, but he's going to be good at Eldora or a big fast place like Port Royal. I feel like the, diversity of racetracks we go to, as well as the Outlaws do the same thing, but you get those huge swings and Thorson winning a race, or Rico or Brad. I mean, the diversity of drivers and their strengths and their backgrounds. Look at Dayson, like Dayson coming from non-wing to wing stuff and being successful in wing racing is cool to see, and kind of where their strengths and weaknesses all lie throughout the year.
Gio, all I've got left for you is, it's, what time is it out here on the East Coast? It's 4:41, so dinner time is approaching, and it's been like 45 minutes since I last ate, and that's kind of a stretch for me. So I guess I just got to know, there's a Chili's down the street. I kind of want to be like you, be like Gio. That'll be the campaign, I think, this year. Or eat like Gio. That'll probably be what sells t-shirts. Eat like Gio at Chili's.
I got fatter. People are going to follow those rules.
eat like you or eat like me, because they'll definitely get fatter if they eat like me. What should I go and get at Chili's tonight for dinner? You're the expert. I want to be more like you. Help me out here. What should I go and get at Chili's here tonight?
Well, I'm not against lunch margaritas, but dinner margaritas are probably a bit more accepted, I feel like. But Presidente margarita for sure, and a triple dipper. You can't really go wrong.
Dang, that's a good answer. I'm gonna head that way now.
All right, well, Tony's got to get out of here. Gio's probably got to get out of here too. Gio, we appreciate you jumping on the Highlander Room, and we look forward to watching you and this team develop throughout the year. And we will see you guys down in Las Vegas. Once again, thanks for joining the show.
No worries. Thank you, guys.